What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the spot where we kick back and react to all kind of different things. All right, so what we got going on today? We are back over with Lindsay Nicole getting some more animal videos in, continuing down her WTF series. This one is Freaks of Nature. All right, so I feel like the last two qualified as Freaks of Nature, but we got more. So let's go ahead and check this out. Let's go.
Quiet, stop playing with the bag. Bitch loves bags. Another episode of What the F is This? Where you can expect to be horrified by nature beyond comprehension in a variety of different ways. Why? Why do I do this to you? And my poor editor GM. What? I must remind you, I don't technically pick these animals myself. The internet is filled with viral videos of strange creatures and people asking, what the f is that? I merely get tagged in them, likely talk about them on TikTok, and then collect them into a giant list where I find common themes for this series, like worms, aliens, things you shouldn't touch, god-forsaken creatures, and today's episode, freaks that get freaky. Yeah, there were a few on the list that caused a common horror by the ways that they mate. So, buckle up for episode 5 of What the F is This? We usually start these episodes with general information we gotta get out of the way. But in this case, there's really no specific general information to talk about. There are an enormous amount of ways that animals get down with the get down, and I can't possibly outline every single one in this video. So think of this more as like a catered 5-course meal, getting a little bit of different things. 5-course meal is usually set up as hors d'oeuvres, appetizer, salad, main course, and dessert. I had to look that up, just so you know. I didn't know that. I'm not British. But instead of that setup, we're gonna do 2 appetizers and 3 main courses. So, allow me to introduce you to appetizer 1, scorpions. It's actually really ironic. Scorpions do something called my French accent is probably the worst in this entire planet. Promenade. Oh God, ew.
Jusqu'à France.
Promenade a duh.
Gorlami.
Where the male will grab the female's hands, well, pinchers, their big meat claws, and starts leading her in a lovely dance while he tries to figure out the perfect place to put his little bag of sperm on the floor. The spermatophore. Sperm on the floor. Spermatophore. She might try to sting him. In a few species, he might try to sting her. And this dance hopefully eventually leads to him dancing her over the bag of sperm so it can get catapulted into her. In many arachnids, including the scorpion, this sometimes ends in sexual cannibalism, where the female eats the male. Which brings me to appetizer.
Arachnids. Just arachnids. Always. To be a male arachnid has got to be terrible. This is like you fighting for your life while trying to get some at the same time. But that's interesting. He puts his stuff on the ground and has to pull her over it so it can fire up into her. Huh. Strange ways animals get down, right?
Appetizer 2, anglerfish, where often males become sexual parasites to females. The males are much smaller, look nothing like the female. They don't look like anglerfish at all. That classic anglerfish look that you're familiar with, yeah, that's a lovely lady. The only purpose these males have in life is to find a female, latch onto her, start feeding from her blood so their tissues can become fused together as one. He loses his eyes, fins, some internal organs, no job, no prospects, and becomes a mere appendage of the female, only alive to provide her sperm whenever she wants it. I actually have a whole page about this in my spooky specimens.
I've seen some human relationships that were kind of like that. Oh man, in both scenarios, whichever direction that whichever appendage, the man be an appendage or the woman be an appendage, I've seen both sides. Both sides.
Coloring book that you can check out at the link in the description. All right, see, those were quick appetizers. Now, let's move on to our first main course. If you've ever come across this video on the internet, or this picture, you might have thought this was CGI, or some sort of weird hairy tentacle sculpture made for a French horror film. But since it's being showcased in this video, I'm sure we can all recognize this as some sort of moth waiting to get slutted out. This is Genghis, also called the Baphomet moth. Found in Southeast Asia, and you guessed it, Australia. This one in particular is a male, and all that crazy shit is inflatable. On a typical day, the male looks like this. Classic, run-of-the-mill moth. Nothing special. But when night comes and he's ready to mate, he turns into this. These weird tentacle-like extensions are called coromata, or hair pencil. They're organs that essentially sit inside of a pocket in the moth's abdomen and become inflated and start pumping out pheromones when he's trying to find a lady. They essentially got 4 bottles of Sauvage strapped to the trunk. Oftentimes, these pheromones attract other males and they form a little moth fraternity, calling out for females together. Like the human fraternities that we're familiar with, this method is surprisingly successful. The females soon arrive, and once contact occurs, the coromata deflate and they mate. It's a whole event. Any females who ultimately didn't get a chance to mate start calling out with their own pheromones that come from tubules inside the body, not the big shit. Let the males know they have been left behind, and the process begins again. Okay, so that's what happens, but I have more to say about the hair pencils. Turns out that the size that they get to is directly related to how they spend their life as a caterpillar. As we know from the very hungry caterpillar, caterpillars like to eat plants. Sometimes plants produce compounds called pyrrolizidine alkaloids, which are supposed to serve as a defense mechanism and keep insects from eating them. But the little caterpillars love this shit. It's like Popeye's spinach to them. The more of these dangerous compounds that they eat as a little caterpillar, the larger their hair pencils will be later on, after they transition to adulthood via metamorphosis. It also impacts pheromone production in a positive way. So, in summary, more danger compounds equals more chicks. Evolution is crazy, isn't it? That sort of ecological, physiological relationship seems so random and small. So many delicate little details that evolved to make up the lives of these moths and their future generations. But also, how the fuck did this happen? They look like some kinky alien shit. But they are by far not the only species that have these. Creatonotus gangus.
I swear, all of our alien movies are just people who watched insects for too long, I swear.
Species, Creatonotus transiens, that has almost identical hair pencil. This is like a thing in the moth and butterfly community. Not all of them have it, and there's plenty of different kinds of hair pencils. Most of them don't look so tentacle-like, but unfortunately some do. Gion, roll the clip. You know what I'm talking about.
Wait, are they holding him down?
Okay, so in many species of moths and butterflies,
What, were they holding him down just to experiment and get... That's messed up. Cold-blooded.
these hair pencils evolved in very elaborate ways. Different shapes and sizes, very species specific, and different factors impacted how those hair pencils evolved to look. What those factors were is not where I was going with this point. My mind actually went to, are there any moths that twerk? So I Google searched, do any moths twerk? And let me show you the first two search results.
Slow motion for me. Slow motion for me. Slow motion for me.
I'll put the link to this in the description because I feel like some of you know. That's that with that. Now, we're going to move on to a different species that approaches sex, as in male and female, in a very different way. You might have heard of hermaphroditic species, animals that instead of having male and female individuals, do both at the same time. They produce both male and female gametes, or sex cells. This can happen in a few different ways, producing both types of sex cells at the same time, simultaneously, or at different times in their life cycle, like starting as a female, then becoming a male, starting as a male, becoming a female, different combos, social hierarchy type of shit. Lots of different ways that this happens. There are over 65,000 hermaphroditic invertebrate species that we know, occurring in over 2/3 of the invertebrate phylum. You know, this cladogram that we usually use for these videos. And in about 450 species of vertebrate fishes. Just fishes, I don't think any other types of vertebrates that we know of. Although often capable, hermaphroditic species don't self-fertilize if they can help it, because it's more beneficial to mix and get some genetic diversity going on. But that doesn't mean that they can't. You could tell a nematode to go fuck itself and it literally could end up pregnant. Okay,
wow.
2. Roll the clip.
Can someone explain this to me? Is this slugs reproducing? Because there's something out of their bodies that's touching. I don't know what this is. I'm not Googling it. Is that how slugs reproduce?
This is how leopard slugs reproduce. Their scientific name is Limax maximus, which translates to the biggest slug. They're not the biggest slug though. But we've got the maximum slug right here. Let's do a freeze frame on a video and identify which different parts we got going on. We've got 2 slugs, a string of mucus, and 2 penne. Your brain might immediately go to the penis fencing and the flat wings in the alien episode of this series. It immediately seems familiar. Another hermaphroditic animal. But with the slugs, this is actually more of a Cirque du Soleil situation than a joust. Because these dirty skanks perform a very calculated, ritualistic dance. When 2 leopard slugs find each other, they first go to some elevated point and they start making a ton of slime. Just a shit ton of slime. Enough to make a rope that comes down from the elevated point. And they descend on the slime rope upside down while they twirl around each other like acrobats in a counterclockwise direction, always, because their penne come out of the right side of their head, and they are really big, like usually as long as their actual bodies. And the Italian ones, whole different story. So the
wow.
asymmetry makes them rotate counterclockwise, and the penne wrap around each other like so, and exchange fluids. I just heard what I said.
So they just stripper pole, basically, just spinning around, dancing with each other, making it happen. Wow, that's stuff that you learn, right? Crazy stuff.
I had a moment of realization about what I do for a living. The slugs will often mate as both male and female rather than one or the other. So they fertilize and get fertilized, and can even store the sperm for later if they choose to do so. This is just normal, typical stuff, guys. Normal, typical stuff. If you really think about it, hermaphroditism makes a lot of sense evolutionarily. If your goal in life is to pass on your genes at a high rate, so the next generation has a lot of your genes. And that's what survival of the fittest really is, isn't it? It's really survival of who gets to scissor the most. So hermaphroditic species essentially double their dating pool. They can get down with anyone of their species they run into. I guess that actually just really evens out the competition across the board, so my point does not stand. Scratch what I just said. It was pointless. Let's just move on to the final creature in our lineup. This one I actually personally picked to accompany the last two. It's like a chef special. Because as far as I know, there aren't any viral videos of them with people asking what the fuck is that, but they definitely should be viral. The Pololo worm, found in shallow tropical waters of the South Pacific Ocean. They only mate at specific times of the year during a specific phase of the moon. Some witchcore shit right there. Watch.
Wow,
turn
okay.
this worm into a deity. That's not all though. The moon shit is cool, but they're not the only animals that do this. It's something called lunar periodicity. They are considered a classic textbook case, but that's not the reason why they made it into this video. Surprise, surprise, the way they reproduce is nuts. The back end of their bodies break off. Should I draw it? I'm gonna draw it. Why use one of the many diagrams online when I can draw it myself in a shitty way? Worm. And then they have other end of the worm, and it goes flash, and it goes up to the surface of the ocean. And this releases egg and sperm into the water until it dissolves and babies get made in a giant egg and sperm stew. That's the Spark Notes version. Let me explain in greater detail. Throughout the year, the worms live
Greater detail, huh?
and they just hang out. While they're doing this, a separate piece of their body buds off their tail end, called an epitope. It's like a noodle extension of themselves that gets to about 40 centimeters long and only contains reproductive cells, egg, or sperm. That's it. During the third quarter of the moon, sometime in the spring, that epitope gets launched off the rest of the worm and makes their way to the surface, along with the epitopes of other worms around it. And all the epitopes swim around, flipping around like noodles caught in a current, releasing eggs and sperm until they completely disintegrate. And then right there in the water, the sex cells make contact and make new worms and start their life as a little larva. Okay, so the process of shooting shit into the ocean and hoping something sticks probably doesn't sound very evolutionarily favorable. Not really smart if you're trying to pass on your precious genes to the next generation with efficiency. But this is actually a really popular mode of reproduction in the ocean called broadcast spawning. The parents of the offspring never make contact. Oftentimes they can't. They're sessile, attached to the ocean floor or substrate like coral or sponges or mussels. They have no choice but to put their trust in the tides. Just send that shit out. Luckily, these spawning events are often controlled by water temperature, lunar, solar signals, and the specifics depend on each species. And that does give them a leg up. But usually the eggs and sperm are just like released right there. No extra step. With the Pololo worms, that shit gets sent elsewhere. It's like a rocket ship. It's essentially a sexual satellite. There's a lot of cultural significance with the Pololo too. And the reason why Western science has known about these worms since the 1800s is because of native populations in these South Pacific islands, like Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, that built traditions around these delicately timed spawning events. They were the ones to determine environmental cues that helped predict Pololo days, nights that the epitopes first emerge so they can be harvested. And because this only happens once or twice a year, this is considered a delicacy. And so the harvest are really big events. Different cultures will fry them into a rice dish or cook them with cookies green, or just eat them raw right out of the water. That's it.
No.
Of course,
Why? Why?
A little extra piece of dessert though. Don't worry.
What's wrong? What's wrong with people? Hey, the specific type of worm only mates like once or twice a year. It's like a whole event for them. Let's eat it. Like, what's wrong with people? I'm sorry. Culture or not, some things just avoid altogether. That's just how I feel about it. Just like, I'm like, they built a whole tradition. I'm like, okay, do they worship them? They eat them. I'm like, of course they go to eating. People.
Next week's video is a quiz. Yeah, the second quiz on this channel. I decided I'm going to be doing a unit quiz about every 10 videos. I think this time it's 11. I give you multiple choice questions based on those last 10 videos and give you the opportunity to see how much information you've retained. You can approach it however you want. You can kind of just go with the flow, see how you do. You can turn it into a drinking game with friends, or you can take it very seriously and go back and watch all 10 videos and take notes this time. Whatever you want to do. I'll be doing a live stream review session on my Patreon. It'll be casual and fun and also give you all the information
Okay,
that you need.
advertisements and considering when this video is out, I'm late to the party. But anyway, that's it for that one. All right, y'all. Crazy mating habits. I wasn't expecting that one. I just saw Freaks of Nature. I should have known. Oh man, it was probably gonna go in that direction. But yeah, some very weird mating habits. And for some reason, we have to figure out a way to butt in. I swear. But All right, y'all know what to do. Go down in the comment section. Let me know what y'all thought about this one. And let me know what you'd like to see me react to next. Hit that like button before you go. Share this video with everyone you know. And subscribe if you haven't done so already, all right? So, till next time, take care of yourselves. And I'm out of here.